So for this cue, the director is asking for something that starts out feeling safe and calm, but moves into something that is, as they described it, suspicious and uneasy. So when you're working with directors, they're not always going to use musical terms. They're going to use, you know, descriptive words of what they see in their head. They're going to describe what the mood, maybe emotion they're going for. Don't always expect the director to explain things in musical terms that you're going to be able to relate to as a musician. That is your job to kind of decipher it. So for this first section, I'm actually going to start with our violas because I want the violas to basically play the root note of the chord. I'm going to come in with the violas, play the roots, the second violins. I'll come back to those. I'm going to add in our thirds, and then because we're working with a lot of seventh and sixth chords in here, I'm going to use the top violin one voicing to voice out the sevenths and the sixth. All right, might make some adjustments there. Let's get our thirds going with our violin two voicing. So here we go on that. All right, for the part that we just played, obviously those are a little bit off. I'm going to kind of pull those up and look at them together. You know, I don't ever like to quantize anything 100%. It just takes away from the human feel. But what I am going to do is kind of go in and look at it and see where they might be off a little too much, kind of compare the velocities between the two, especially when we're starting with those first two voices because they kind of really set everything up for anything else that comes after that. First things first, let's go back and look at our violas. Another thing that I like to do with these type of samples, because they are, for all of these, we're using legato samples. So legato, when you actually play notes over the top of each other, it creates more of a realistic sound where you can hear the violin or viola kind of bow from one note to the next. So if you kind of notice the connection between the two, that's the difference in using something like a legato and a long. So we're going to go in and see what our timing looks like. It's really not too bad. I was pretty happy with the performance of the MIDI CC data. That's another thing to consider, is that a lot of times, at least for me, I'm not a great piano player. So when I'm adjusting the MIDI CC data in real time, playing it as a real instrument when I'm tracking, I'm going to miss notes in my right or left hand depending on what I'm playing. Kind of adjust these back a little bit to overlap. Right here, we are just a little too early on the note. Still want to get that nice overlap. Way too early here. And I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this tail because of our switch to the minor key here in a minute, but let's kind of roll with it for now and see what we got. For this, we're going to try and get that seventh, maybe play around with some thirds movement in there. There's a G6 chord at the end, but we want to outline that. I'm not super concerned with adding any fifths in here because we might add some pads. And with your seventh chords, the fifth, I would say if you're going to omit anything, I would omit it, especially in those top register violins and strings. The fifth is what I would omit. I would probably put it in the cello or the basses and use those really wide voicings that we've talked about in other videos so that things don't get too muddy and too kind of jumbled up. Again, let's kind of compare as we go, see if there's any kind of cleanup that we might need to do. Overall, it's not too bad. All right, now I'm actually going to come in and hit our basses first. Reason being, I know that I want the basses to kind of round things out and make things a little bit warmer. I don't think that I want to come in right at the start. I want everything a little bit lighter and airy at the beginning. I want to bring in some warmth, maybe about 4 bars into it. So we're actually going to move to about right here, maybe kind of a grace note coming into it before we hit that F major 7 chord. But with the basses, I'm going to move pretty low. I want to leave some room for the cellos to be maybe up a couple octaves from the basses so that we could maybe kind of play with some voicings and counter melodies. So let's see what we got there. Maybe a few timing adjustments there. So let's play around with the cellos a little bit, see what we can come up with. Other than being way off on the timing, not too bad. So we're going to go in, make a few adjustments. Right there. What? Apparently I am not playing with the click at all today. This should be here. Good God. I was way off. Okay, moving along. Next part, we're going to try and add in some pads. So keeping it really simple, I'm just going to use this. I'm a really big fan of this. What is this? Spitfire Audio cinematic pads. Great plug-in, super cheap. That one and the cinematic piano. I think it's like a $30-$40 plug-in, but super useful. It's come in really, really useful on a lot of documentaries that I've done, and also it works really well in horror when you kind of play with it and manipulate it a little bit. But we're just looking for something kind of warm. I'm thinking I'm just going to do some fifths, maybe add some upper textures here in a minute after I kind of let everything build, but we're just going to be kind of really light. It's more in support of the strings. So let's try that out. Like I say, don't even want to hear it at first. A little bit. I want a good bit of reverb on it, and I'm going to pull up this cinematic and see what that sounds like. That's a bit much. I don't know if that's the right one. Let's try another one. Smooth it out a bit. Let's see. I think it's part of the problem. I want the slow attack on this. Really want it to swell in. I think the other thing is that this, doing ones and fives, I think we need to go a little bit wider on our voicings. I need to bring all this up. Let's see what it sounds like up an octave. The other thing that I noticed is I like the automation that I've got on my pulse, but the pulse is still a little loud for my taste, so usually when I'm kind of being lazy and I don't want to mess with the automation, what I'll do is I'll just pull up the gain plugin and trim it down like 5 dB. So again, we just want it subtle for the first part, but going back to our pad, and this is another important part about the way that I work, is that I like to try and do a little bit of quick mixing on the go as I'm doing everything as much as possible. I try and get the MIDI CC data and automation there first. I try not to do any automation until mixing, unless it is something that I know I'm going to need to do, like on this pulse here. All right, now let's move on to looking at doing something with maybe a little bit of some cymbals, some percussion. So I'm thinking maybe some light cymbal swells kind of in the middle. I don't want anything super percussive because we've already got our pulse lightly going on. This one is and again, I'm just using the damage library, the symbolism patch. I'm just going to do some cymbal swells. one other thing to bring up, sometimes these pulses, when you're using them, you're not catching everything because of it's got to basically trigger the effect or trigger the sample, and then you've got key switches going on. Kind of drives me nuts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually just take this individual MIDI region and I'm going to bounce it to audio. I do this quite a bit. It's easier just to kind of start in the middle of the composition, not have notes fall off. So we're going to bounce this to audio. We do not have to deal with that anymore. Obviously, it's a kind of puny audio signal, but we just want a little bit of a pulse building under this. Add a little bit of a sub boom in here, not much, just a little texture, just a little something in here. And let's see, we are on an F. With this library and libraries like it, you've got to watch the attack because a lot of times it's going to have some kind of swell into it. Anything too aggressive. Something kind of like that. See how that fits in here. Again, was not in time with it, so what we're going to do is bounce this to audio. Again, naming, super important. Now, this is the benefit of getting the sample to audio, is that we can just line it up exactly on the beat. Let's see how we're looking now. Very light. Something I noticed when listening back in is I don't like the strings coming in with so much volume. So I'm going to make them a little more gradual. I'm going to do that for each one of these because we just want it coming in from basically nothing. I think it's really this guy. All right, so fun fact, I had 2 cameras go down during this session, and I also discovered that there was distortion in our pulse track that was driving me nuts. So if you notice that, yeah, we ditched that one. So this modern pulse, when we printed it to audio, it ended up having some kind of weird artifacts. So we're going to scratch that, kind of fix it. I thought it was an audio buffer setting. The joys of modern recording. So moving on. Let's see if we can balance this with, just going to use trusty alchemy and an arpeggiator. So we'll play around with this and create another pulse that maybe might actually fit a little bit better. Let's see how it goes. Try that again. For this one, Sectal quantize. All right, once again, we're going to print this to audio. And let's say this is Alchemy Pulse 1. Alright, so automate this. This one I'm thinking we can actually probably bring it up a little. With all audio, we need to make our little edits and trims so nice and clean. And let's go in again, let's clean up our naming. I'm going to duplicate this track, and I'm going to try and do something a little different with this one. I'm actually a pretty big fan of this Chroma Glow by Logic. So let's see what it does for our synth pulse. Kind of like that. Let's try it out. Basically the Chroma Glow was just accentuating low-end frequencies after this was getting compressed, and it didn't make any sense. So we're actually going to put the our single band multi-band compressor after the Chroma Glow, and let's print this down. And this Alchemy Pulse 2, and again, like a good audio editor, put your fades on the end of your track. All right, let's see what we got. Very cool. Okay, so we've got our pulse, and we need to maybe add a little bit of kind of a build. I don't want it to kind of go into the trailer land, but let's see what we could maybe do. I might add another boom somewhere in here, and then have that kind of set up for the last downbeat coming out of that G6 chord. So again, I just want something subtle. Something like that. And once again, we are not looking for a perfect timing because we just want the full sample there. We're going to go in, print it to audio, and then line up our boom exactly where it should be. right on the downbeat. Let's see. Perfect, I think. That is perfect. It's kind of bothering me. I think with this is our actual transient. Let's hear it with the click. Nope. Let's come back a little bit. There we go. With our boom 1 and 2, I actually do want to come in and I want to actually send them out to a little bit of the vintage verb, maybe just a tad, and I mean a very little bit of the supermassive. I want them to sound a little more spacious, so let's see what that's like. It flourishes. What we are building up to, which is our riser. So for this, I'm going to use the Ascent riser, and I'm actually going to use their built-in reverb because it's really good. Let's go back to our sample. Anybody interested in Ascent, I actually did a review on their full plug-in contact instrument playthrough. Apologies, that was insanely loud. Sorry about that. Good God, that is crazy loud. All right, we're gonna pull the whole plugin down. What I'm thinking is actually I don't want a riser, I want whooshes. All right, let's try this. So okay. Again with the reverb, but I pull it down. Their reverb is crazy hot. It's more of what I'm thinking there. So I like that first one the best. And you guessed it, we're going to print that to audio, which is 1. It's going to give us all the control we need. I'm going to blow up the wave file a little bit so I can see the attack. And we're just going to have to use our ears here. Cool. Might combine that with a boom, but let's go on this and I'm gonna add in Valhalla reverb and a little more supermassive. Alright, that's a lot of supermassive. Supermassive is crazy. Let's get one more boom going. There we go. I actually like that it gives that crazy long tail coming out of this piece. The first part, section A, going into section B. Let's print down our boom. This is boom number 3. Let's line them up. Okay. And that, I don't want to put the supermassive on this because I don't want to overdo it with the whoosh already having that on the top end. I'm just looking for a little resonance in the boom. I'm going to bring that down again, just kind of mixing as we go. Lastly, I want a little bit of a riser, but nothing drastic. The reverb I put on it might actually have been too much. See, where are we? All right, we're going to use that, but we're not going to use much of it. Audio. That supermassive is ridiculous. I want to bring this down. I just want it really subtle. All right, our whoosh is too much, too drastic. So where's our boom? We want a little bit more subtlety on that part. In fact, this whoosh, -15. A lot of times when I'm kind of doing this mix on the go, I'm looking at -3, -5, -10, 15. I'll make those jumps, and then from there, I'll kind of adjust a dB at a time along the way. But that's a quick way to kind of get you in the ballpark. Just quick moves, put it on the number key, hit enter, see what it sounds like. You're trying to move quick through it as quick as you can when you're doing a little bit of that mix on the go. What I was thinking was I want to add 2 more elements and then we can move on to the next section. So I'm actually going to add a solo horn here. So we're going to go back to our Spitfire Audio Symphony Orchestra. Why all these plugin developers make their plugins jump out so large, I have no idea. And we're going to do a solo horn just over that, maybe the end of the F major 7 to that G6, because we haven't really even introduced our brass yet. Fun fact, our MIDI controller has stopped talking. Thank you. All kinds of issues today. Also, there's a gnat in the room that has entered the room and he is attacking me. So if you notice me swatting at something, I'm not freaking crazy. It's a gnat. actually just want to loop this and play around with it. Something really simple there. Hard cutoff here, and I'm going to give a little bit more ambience to this. So this goes back to having your different reverbs set up ahead of time. Room, bigger reverb, and then a massive reverb. Just keep it simple. Here I wasn't going to have any more horns or brass, but what I want to do actually is undo that. I'm bringing some kind of horn cluster as a kind of a sort of a riser going into the next section. So trailer brass. I don't know, we're looking for something here. Don't know what. None of those, literally not a one. All right, we're gonna switch gears and we're going to Opus East West. Make really great stuff. If you're on a budget, they have a subscription service you can do. The other thing I like about this plugin is that you can just type in cluster. Going for something like that. I might actually go in here, add some distortion. Okay, yeah, it gets nasty. All right, so that's all we need, but I want to say I just played the velocity too low. Okay. Little context. Like it, but we're gonna have to really Do a little better here. Way down. Actually, we're going to need to draw in this. Some of these samples are like crazy sensitive. Like I don't even want it to peak until about right here. Perfect. Just looking for a little ambience. This is horn clusters.